Hello, my name is Sean Holsgrove, and I have been working towards my PGCE qualification at the University of Central Lancashire. While studying, I have been working as a trainee teacher at Unity College in Burnley, focusing on the subjects of art and textiles. During my time at Unity College, I have had many wonderful experiences and I have developed many new skills while studying for my PGCE programme. These include being given my own set of classes where I have built strong rapport with all learners and have seen them progress within their artistic talents, watching my students go from no interest in the subject at all to choosing to study it for GCSE. Not only teaching my subjects, but learning new things about myself as a person, and making a difference in my students' lives. For example, teaching my students everyday skills like tying your shoes. Little moments like these make a big impact on my students' lives. The next step in my professional development include developing a range of artistic resources that will make artistic practice accessible and enjoyable for all students. This could be in the form of instructional posters detailing the steps and procedures of developing something amazing, or teaching other members of staff how to develop their artistic skills to be able to support their students further. I have a fond awareness for students with additional educational needs, and I believe that an art education should be accessible for all. Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up. Within my studies, I have followed the work by Harman and Toth, and implemented a term called C3 before me into my classroom. This rule promotes peer learning within the classroom, and I believe it has had a tremendous effect on my students. Students talk to one another, they discuss their artwork and not only formulate new ideas, but new friendships. Within my time at the University of Central Lancashire, I discovered the works of Vygotsky and his constructivist theories in tailoring the needs of your learners. Cognitive development is rooted from social interactions from peers. Bloom's taxonomy, which ensures your students are ready and prepared to learn. Bloom hypothesised that students' abilities could be measured along a continuum ranging from the simple recall, or recognition of facts, through increasingly more complex and abstract mental levels, to the highest order, which is classified as evaluation. Honey and Mumford's learning styles, reflector, activist, theorist and pragmatist, and Skinner's radical behaviourism that focuses on learning as a process of forming associations with the environment and the individual. Behaviourism is a worldview that assumes a learner is essentially passive, responding to environmental stimuli. The learner starts off as a clean slate and behaviour is shaped through positive and negative reinforcement. Both positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement increase the probability that the antecedent behaviour will happen again. From the beginning of the programme to the end, my teaching skills have increased tenfold. In relation to the ETF standards, in the category for setting high expectations which inspire, motivate and challenge your learners, I believe I have progressed from a grade 3 is able to encourage learners to participate and contribute in an atmosphere conducive to learning, to a grade 2 and sometimes a grade 1 consistently encourages learners to participate and contribute in an atmosphere highly conducive to learning. And my planning and teaching well-structured lessons aspect of my practice has moved from uses a small range of teaching strategies and resources to plan series of lessons that take account the needs of groups of learners and individuals through the setting of differentiated learning outcomes, carefully matching teaching and learning activities and resources to support learners in achieving these intended learning outcomes. All learning outcomes are consistently achieved by relevant learners. Before my PGCE programme started, I had never stood in front of a classroom and was terrified at the thought of being ridiculed by students. But now, I feel confident in my abilities to stand in front of a class of 30 plus students and give demonstrations on how to produce something beautiful. Following my instructions from my mentor, my colleagues and peers, I found the courage to demonstrate a number of painting and drawing techniques, give punishments to misbehaving students, and build a good rapport with all of my students. Over the course of my PGCE programme, I felt quite intimidated to tell people off, but as I have grown, my ability to spot misbehaviour has increased. Sometimes students still act up in lessons and consequences must follow, but I now feel confident to be able to stop a situation from even occurring with a look and a call of a name. I don't believe in shouting at disruptive students. I think you should give them respect and talk to them like adults. I think that is the only way for them to respect you as not only as a teacher, but as a person. If a student is being rude or disruptive, I sit next to them, look them in the eyes, and tell them I am not happy with their behaviour. By talking to the students one-on-one, rather than making a spectacle of them, the disruptive students understand that they are not behaving appropriately and so stop what they're doing. During my time at Unity College, I have had experience working in a number of subjects, such as art and design, photography, and textiles. Before my training, I had never really approached the subject of textiles. I could barely thread a needle. But as my training progressed, I learnt to follow a dressmaker's pattern, use and fix a sewing machine, embroider, and create a series of garments including pencil skirts, curtains, and circle dresses. Yes, my time in the subject wasn't always the happiest, and I did often become stressed when trying to fix broken down sewing machines at 6 PM after a full day of teaching. But thinking back, I'm so proud of myself for not only learning a new subject, but developing a new skill too. My skills increased, and I now feel confident to sit in the sewing machine and produce a piece of clothing using a range of fabric manipulation techniques, such as rouging, hemming, pleating, and fabric origami. There are so many more avenues within textiles that I need to master, but like I always tell my students, take a break, calm down, refocus, and look at it again. In relation to my subject specialism of art, I thought there wouldn't be much I could learn at the beginning of my teacher training, but I was wrong. I learnt that just because I can envision something doesn't mean that everyone else can. My demonstration skills have improved, and I do not feel nervous when showing a large class of students how to produce something. My drawing and painting skills have drastically improved, as I have had to show my students a range of techniques I would not normally use myself. From learning these techniques, my own professional practice has opened a wider market for my artwork, and I am gaining a wider response from my art. Maya Angelou once said, "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." This meant that if you can imagine it, you can create it. If you can't create it in the conventional way, create a new way and show those around you. As mentioned before, I use the see 3 before me rule. This rule in itself oozes inclusivity. Harmon and Toth stated the see 3 before me rule as, when students need assistance with their work, they should ask 3 other members of the class before asking the teacher. It could also be used as brain, book, buddy, then boss for older students. I use this method of teaching because it encourages the students to discuss their work and promote their ideas and views. It also promotes healthy conversational skills, which is needed for employment. I believe that by implementing this approach, my students gain a stronger trust with their peers and produce work that they would never have even thought of before. It is important that the pedagogical strategies we employ in the classroom reflect an understanding of social identity development so that we can anticipate the tensions that might occur in the classroom and be proactive about them. I always ensure my lessons are inclusive for all learners. Within my lessons, I teach my students how to review one another's work in a constructive manner. I do this by displaying all pieces of work produced by the students either on a wall or on one central table. I never use a student's name. I refer to them as artists. By doing this, the students feel like professionals and don't feel singled out. I always ensure every piece of work gets analysed within the lessons by the class, and if students need to elaborate their comments further, I ask a series of follow-up questions, not only to further that particular student's understanding, but to give the artist receiving feedback more information about their work. I have met many different types of students within my time at Unity College. Some quiet, some loud, some who just want to work, and some who will do anything else instead of work. If it hadn't been for these different types of students, I wouldn't feel confident walking into a classroom. I've learnt so much from my students about myself. I know not to take myself so seriously, and even though as teachers we have lots of work to do, we cannot forget to smile and laugh. My school environment has been such a wonderful thing to experience. I've seen firsthand how a school runs and how its staff are affected by the daily routines put in place. During my second year, I thoroughly enjoyed implementing my action research. I used a Year 9 class within art and design and taught them how to create a series of paintings focusing on flowers and acrylic paint. I am so proud of the work they produced in this project, and it wouldn't have been possible without the support from my peers and tutors. A number of students often displayed negative feelings towards their work and often felt confused as to what to do next. So, I implemented the say 3 before me rule to help boost my students' confidence levels while they were producing their work. Whenever my students were unsure of what to do next, rather than just giving them the answer, I opened discussions amongst the peer groups to try and see if their peers could possibly help them out. By doing this, the students discovered new techniques from their peers rather than the teacher. This boosted the students' demonstration skills, communication skills, analytical skills, and allowed them to create friendships that perhaps weren't there before. The work produced at the end of this project was phenomenal. I'm so proud and impressed with my students' work that I have proudly hung it in my classroom for all to see. So, where now? What will I do next? I'll keep up with my teaching practices and ensure I keep up to date with new teaching theories and techniques. I will develop my classroom management skills and master all the points in my ILP. These being, explain my tasks more effectively and don't assume my students understand what I mean. Produce several pieces of finished works to show my students their finished outcomes for their lesson, and not only differentiate for the weaker students, but the higher ones too. I will also continue practicing and producing my own artwork to help further my skills in developing and teaching students in a number of fields. My functional skills within English and maths have also increased. I've always had an interest in maths and English. I think that might be because there are right and wrong answers, unlike art, and I've completed my online skills tests with a pass of 100%. I need to ensure I implement maths and English more in my lessons, possibly in the form of spelling tests and multiplications within patterns to help develop my students' understanding and knowledge as they are seen to be the utmost importance in today's society. In my lessons, I always plan for differentiation. These being content, process, outcome, learning material, ways of learning, and demonstrating learning. I always ensure I have multiple lesson outcomes for my students, as each student is different in their skills and abilities. One aspect of my teaching which I believe I do well is performing my demonstrations. I have even now started to ask the students to demonstrate to their peers, and my mentor thinks this is a wonderful technique. It cements the students' understanding of the topic and gives the class another fresh perspective on the drawing and painting techniques. Overall, my confidence, time management, and overall demeanour has increased so much during my PGCE. I am so proud of all of my students. The work they produce is stunning. The conversations we have are mind-boggling, and our lessons together are hilarious. Every single one of them are a pleasure to teach. I would like to thank my mentor Tony for all of her help and advice during my placement. My tutors Abigail and Claire, who helped me through the toughest and best times within my PGCE, and my good friend Mick. If it wasn't for him helping me in every day in the classroom, I wouldn't be where I am today. I am so grateful to every single person who I have worked with during my PGCE. You have made my teacher training experience so wonderful, and I would not have changed a thing. And that is my PGCE story. I have loved every aspect of my time, and I wish it would never have to end. But now, it's time to put away my Game Boy and become a proper adult. Pick up my paintbrush, create my lesson plans, and be the best teacher I can possibly be. Thank you.